everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Watch No Evil. This is Matt.
And this is Zach.
And today we're going to be taking a look at Midsommar, the 2019 drama horror film directed by Ari Aster and starring Florence Pugh, about a couple that travels to Eastern Europe to visit a Swedish homeland during their Midsummer Festival. This is by far probably the most artistic of the movies that we've watched, and really different than things that we've done before, and I was jazzed the whole way through this movie. What about you?
Yeah, when we first started it, I saw the runtime. It's like, what?
2 hours and 27 minutes.
Yeah, almost like 2.5 hours. I'm like, whoa, this is much longer than I think anything we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's pretty significant.
I think only The Birds came close.
Birds was also pretty long.
Yeah, and that was like 2 hours. Most of the time, like most horror movies, it's like hour and a half, maybe hour 45, and you're done.
Yeah, and there's a significant difference in quality depending on the length of the film, I would say.
Right, yeah, usually a higher quality film is longer, and this is definitely the case with this one. It didn't feel like it was 2.5 hours. It was captivating the whole time. We talked about that as we watched it. There's like how they handled transitions was really artistic, but also really captivating. No transitional material was the same from scene to scene. It was all fresh and different, and they did interesting things with cinematography. They did interesting things with pacing and music, and just overall atmosphere was stunning in this movie. And what's strange about this movie is that it doesn't feel like your traditional horror movie. It's not in the dark the whole time. In fact, it's the opposite. You get a lot of light, and there's like one night scene in the whole thing, and nothing remotely frightening even happens. It's all in the daylight, and like stark daylight. The weather's always beautiful.
Part of that is too the theme of the Midsummer Festival being the longest days of the year, and it's really cool that at least in the beginning segment of the movie, we only see night in the context of the United States experience that they're having. So when they're home and when her parents are dead, we see the nighttime there. But then once they get to Sweden and are participating in this Midsummer Festival, the first time we would have had a night scene, the first technical night that they had there, she had that whole dream sequence from the trip, the mushrooms that she took. And she asks when she wakes up, did it get dark? And, they said only for a little while. But yeah, the quality of the movie is so reliant on the brightness. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that so much of the midsummer ritual that they're doing relies on the sun, and the imagery around the sun is so significant throughout the whole film, in all of the tapestries and in the wall paintings that this little Horka community has. And then also, the use of the fire and the sunflowers being this sort of symbol of brightness. But that being said, it never actually points the camera at the sun, which is also a really cool sort of way of treating the idea of the summer month as being almost synthetic or symbolic, and it's created by the culture rather than being real. So we get this neat sort of a duality there. We never actually see the sun, but it is always bright.
The filter with which you see this community is it's almost like unreal. It feels fake, I feel like it's like in like the 60s and 70s, like when they would film like a bright sunny day scene, and it just it's like I feel like it's not really sunny, or like it's like this weird filter that feels, like you said, like synthetic and kind of like manufactured. And it does have that kind of quality to it the whole time, but it's also like really serene.
And it does an incredible job of disguising when the sort of trippy moments are happening. And obviously a significant theme of the entire movie is the use of nature and the trip, because of the way that they have the plants and the trees and such doing that like twisting breathing that they talk about early on when they do the drugs at the beginning, and then the tree is like sort of melting as he's talking about how nature is breathing, and that runs through the whole movie, that even when we see nature just in its pure form, we see just like a still shot, there is always that like subtle acidic, watercolory movement that is happening in the background, be it in the trees or in the mountains or in the grass around them, to like keep it always pushing forward.
I don't even know if you could really call this a horror movie, just because there's no clear horror to it. There's nothing supernatural going on here. Like, there are kind of horrific things going on, but it's like by the end of the movie you come to think of the commune people or the community as like the good guys, and Christian, Danny's boyfriend, is like kind of the bad guy, and he's kind of the bad guy from the beginning too. But it's like it doesn't really have like a clear horror thing that you're supposed to be afraid of. It just has these graphic moments. It has unsettling moments. And going back to the nature thing, like there's a quote that I think Pele's brother Ingmar says. He says, nature knows how to stay in harmony instinctively. And they do have like this, all their rituals revolve around these flowers and like the natural elements and the mountain that they throw the older members off of. And it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, because nature is this wonderful thing, and they clearly respect that and worship it to some extent. And it makes you wonder that what they're doing can't be that wrong, right? And it's almost like this, as a viewer, you're almost like indoctrinated somewhat into their way of thinking.
Well, that's one of the things, too, that's really cool about how this movie portrays this tradition. I think that it's really easy to go down, like, the cult path. Mm-hmm. And as sinister as we see it at the beginning, to its credit, the movie's length really helps that, because we get sort of indoctrinated into the idea that this, this little commune, what they're doing is totally normal for them. It all makes sense. And like you said, we don't see the commune as evil. We sort of see Christian as evil, and we're coded to see Christian as evil from the beginning, because from the second, the movie starts, he's just being a dick to Danny. Mm-hmm. And this commune, they show her so much love, and I think that we're supposed to interact with the movie through the lens of Danny, and we're supposed to sort of project onto her more than we are onto these other characters. But so often in horror movies, when they have communes like this, when I think of like the way that they do Wicker Man, it is supposed to be through this idea that everything is secret and bad, and these people are obviously scary and wicked, the same way that they do in Hot Fuzz with the townsfolk there. Like, that something is off about them and that they are sinister from the beginning. But in this, it is really shown as tradition or traditional, and it's not something for people to be startled by. Even when they kill people in this, it doesn't feel crazy.
Right. And I feel like in a lot of other horror movies that involve cults, it's like, oh, we're sacrificing these people to resurrect the demon or whatever it is. And that's not, it's like it got those sinister elements to it. Like, they have these malicious intentions in their rituals. This is not the case here. They have rituals because this is part of their culture, and this is just like, what they do. And it's just how they respect the land and they respect the tradition of their community. And to be honest, I was having some volume control issues while watching this, because it was like on the certain unnamed platform on which we watched this, the music would come in and it'd be super loud, and then there'd be like some dialogue without music, and you'd have to like switch the volume level really quickly, because then the dialogue is like mute, basically. So at the integral moment where they actually revealed like what the sacrifices were all about in the end, I had no idea what was going on. I still don't know. So could you explain that to me?
It's about like the cyclical nature of their community, and that's why two of their members were given. So I don't know if you caught that part, but it's this idea that for the Irma, the nature goddess that they are sacrificing to, they have to give 9 people, and I'm assuming that 9 is significant. It's, you know, the seats on their circle. It's sort of this like 9-pointed rule of thirds, but they have to give 4 from outside of their community, which obviously were Josh, Mark, Connie, and Simon, and then they have to give 4 from within their community, which were the 2 elders that had reached their time to die, 2 volunteers, and then the Midsummer Queen chooses the last one. And so they all represent certain tropes or stereotypes from the natural world, and so it is sort of like a rebirth festival. And that's sort of coded throughout as well by the way that they are honoring the dead trees that are their ancestors. They're giving them back to nature.
The juxtaposition of like this really beautiful culture and tradition with the really graphic nature of their rituals is just, it's like you have to have some respect for it. That's like really the scariest part, is you're like,
and it's fulfilling the cyclical nature of the community itself, that the community always goes on, and so they talk about how the 2 oldest, that was their time to go. They reached the age where they had to die, and the community has to approve the outside mate that is going to bring, you know, the next generation in. And it's actually sort of horrifying, the fact that part of the reason that they bring in people from the outside is because they are concerned with the incestuous nature that would occur if they, you know, tried to keep it a closed community. So they have to bring in these outside people to continue the community, but only 1 male and 1 female are allowed. And they mention that, but they do it so subtly, and they do it by actually having Pele introduce the girl who he says was born on the same day as her, and that they're not, you know, related. They're not twins, but they're considered siblings. And actually, there's an interesting thing too with Dani becoming the May Queen. They have her dancing, and after she becomes the May Queen, because she lasts the longest, one of the girls comes up to her and says, we're sisters now. So it's like she is being brought into the community as well, as like a new part of it.
Yeah, and I did notice throughout, Pele did refer to like every single person as either his brother or his sister. So it's just that kind of community where they kind of think of each other as family. And they do emphasize, especially towards the end, that they feel certain things together, like when they're burning down that structure at the end, and their 2 people who are in there are burning to death. They're all outside screaming and like writhing around as if they're also being burned alive. And then that like dual scene between Christian and Maya having sex, and then Dani, having been upset by seeing that, is then like screaming in the other building, like next door, and then she's got her group of women around her, and they're all just like screaming and kind of like freaking out respectively with those 2 people. So it's like this, it's not just a community in that it's a bunch of people living together, but they're also like this emotional and like mental community.
Well, it's really cool too, how they sort of set that up, because that was an important moment, because Dani is panicking and the women are sort of panicking as well, and they're doing it differently than she is, obviously, because they don't know what's going on. But then there becomes this synchronicity between the women surrounding Dani and Dani's, you know, exhalations. And that is supposed to be symbolic of her syncing with the community and becoming a part of it. And in fact, I think that too, it is furthered when she chooses Christian to be the bear sacrifice at the end, rather than one of the community members. It's full circle. She has become a part of the community. I don't think that obviously there's like some sort of supernatural emotional link or empathic link between these people, but that it is a trained response And I was thinking about it last night, that when they first wake up, the second day that they're in the commune, and Danny goes outside and she's walking past, there's like that older woman who's leading what looked like Tai Chi, but it was people making facial contortions, and they had their hands like clasped up to their face, and it was them practicing that sort of like empathic response that they go through whenever something happens. And that's really cool to see then when the two elders jump off that cliff, because when the woman falls and she hits face first and dies instantly, none of the community reacts because there is an instantaneous death. And so they have no reason to react in that like pain response. But when the man jumps off and he shatters his legs and is still alive, that is when the community articulates that shared communal experience of pain.
And they emphasize the importance of faces a lot in this movie. I think, one, to further the emotional ties in this community, because a lot of emotion is conveyed through your facial expressions, especially when there are people in your community who speak different languages, as a lot of these people are coming from all over the world, even though they're based in Sweden.
You're totally right, too, because at the end, when they are doing this, their purging ritual by burning down that yellow hut, the men that set it on fire are wearing the masks covering their faces, so that they are not seen. They look like Orville Peck.
But I think what I was getting at was that with the faces, there are a couple of things that tie into their importance. So I think that, just getting into like the depth of the movie here, I think this movie is really about Danny's sense of self-esteem and like her journey going from her viewing herself as worthless and allowing Christian to kind of like just walk all over her. And then at the end, it ends with her smiling, and then immediately to black after that, and she's smiling and dancing around during that dancing ritual. And I feel like with her becoming the May Queen, it's like this almost overinflated sense of self-importance at that point, because these people are almost worshiping her, but it's like, you know, it's showing her that she can be important. She can have this esteem to her character that just isn't present up until that point. And there is also like certain elements of the stages of grief that she does go through, because she starts the movie with losing her entire family. Like denial. I thought at the time, I thought it was like really over the top, because there's like the scene at the bar with Christian and his friends, and they're like talking about, oh, like she's, you know, how basically she's like dead weight in this relationship that he wants to end. And
an emotional burden. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, oh, why can't you just talk to her therapist and like you can break up with her? And it's like, well, there's several things wrong with that. So then she calls him after finding out that her family is all dead, and she just says no, like constantly. And so that's clearly denial. I thought it was a little over the top to have her be doing that, because I think it's a little bit like, I don't know, that's just not how I would react. I suppose some people might react that way.
Oh, I absolutely would. I totally see that.
And I think it's just the word no repeated over. It's like, that's denial.
I mean, Florence Pugh carries the shit out of that scene, too.
Well, she carries the shit out of the entire movie.
The entire movie, yeah.
She does a really good job. But lots of emotions being had with just the stages of grief in general. And lots of facial expressions. Like, she spends a lot of the movie just, like, frowning. But then, I don't know if anger is really present. I kind of thought maybe you could think of something. If I couldn't think of anything. But there are... The element of bargaining is like when she is discussing going home with Pele, and he convinces her to stay at the community. And so that's kind of like her... Some bargaining, but also at the very end. Like, it's almost this bargain that's being made when she is to choose either Christian to sacrifice or one of the community members to sacrifice. So there's also that. And then depression, I feel like that's just, it's throughout. It's not really you don't really need a specific moment there. But then acceptance is like that last scene when she smiles, and like even though she had just been like freaking out about it, she's looking at it and staring at that structure falling down, and she like smiles, and like you can tell that like she's feeling like true happiness in that moment.
Yeah, so that's part of the ritual too. The elder said that part of the burning of the tower is her purging of her worst affects, which were the emotional ties that she had to Christian. Mm-hmm. And so this was, and that the burning of the bear specifically being the negative sort of part of them, the sort of evil, that was all symbolic of the letting go of those worst affects. And as she's like walking away from the burning, she's supposed to be like choking up the smoke and letting go. And so that there is some symbolism in the use of smoke throughout the movie as being a strangling agent for her. And so then the burning of this is the letting go of Christian, who is sort of that negative emotion.
Just quick add on to that. They do call Christian in the bear suit, they call him the Beast.
Yeah.
So he's the clear evil presence. Go on.
Yeah, he bad. I think that the idea of Christian impregnating Maya is partially to do with the whole plot that they have here, because I was thinking about that a little bit more, in that they talk so much about nature, and they talk about the symbols of trees and of the earth, and they make the claim that he is an astrological match to Maya, which is interesting because they don't have any other real concrete references to astrology in the movie. Rather, everything is grounded to nature and the earth and the presence of nature around them. So for them to bring up this astrological element seems sort of out of place. And so my belief is that it was intended for Danny to pick Christian. And I almost wonder if there is some, throughout the movie, I'd have to go back and watch it again, if there's some sort of plan that for the whole ritual to be complete in the first place, she has to pick him as part of the ceremony rather than the other person. Like, I think that the betrayal is a necessary aspect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of this concept of destiny in this movie, because you do get this impression that like everything is really orchestrated, because like Pele is like hellbent on getting Danny to Sweden to this festival, and he's hellbent on keeping her there, and you know getting her to be. And it's like when they first get there, there's the one elder member that he introduces his friends to, and he says, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here," but he's just looking at Danny when he says that. He's not looking at all of them, and it's like you just get this idea that like all these Swedish people love Danny, and like that she's supposed to be there. And I think that ties in well with like the journey to self-esteem that I was talking about earlier, but also with what you're talking about, how it's like almost like she's destined to pick Christian, and almost like they, Pele helped drive this wedge between them to ultimately get her to that point where she's like, yeah, like, let's burn him.
Yeah, and I mean, the community was all over Danny, just loving Danny and being resentful of Christian in general. And that's not to say that, it was part of the movie, but I think that there is a part of this that is supposed to be believed that it is all preordained. I mean, everything is so specific and well calculated. And they talk about plan for each of them, that there are certain aspects to life that are understood, like the old woman who is leading the beginning of the ritual, talking to Simon and Connie, and she says, "It was their time, and when it is my time, I will go too gladly." So there seems to be, this preoccupation with a clear directive that they all undergo.
Well, when we were watching and like that, there was that scene where there was sacrifice. Well, where the elder people were basically committing suicide. I originally thought, because there are these retirement laws in Scandinavian countries. I don't know about Sweden, but I know Norway, they force you to retire at a certain age. I believe it's actually 65, not 75, but still, like, it's a similar idea. And like in a small community like this that basically just lives off the land, it might be like, you know, you're too old to work, so you're no longer of use to our society. So in order to minimize all of our suffering, it's your time to go. And there's it's I think on a larger societal scale in our world rather than the Midsommar world. But I in retrospect, I don't think that's necessarily what it was a reference to, but it's still it has a similar function.
They die at 72 when they jump off that cliff.
Oh, it's
That's
72.
like the whole point. Yeah. Well, okay, so he apparently Pelle like tells them about the life cycle of the commune, which is it's supposed to be divided into seasons, where the childhood is their spring, which lasts from age 0 to 18. Their summer is from 18 to 36, which is when the young people of the group leave on this pilgrimage, and that's why they have all of these people returning at a certain time. And the years of them returning are meant to be bringing other people back into the commune with them for ritualistic purposes. And then the fall is when they are adults and they work for the commune, and then their winter is when they lead the community as elders.
That's so 72 is what you said, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's
because
all 18s.
Right. And 9 is a very important number to this community, because the Midsummer Festival is a 9-day festival, and it happens every 90 years. There's the 9 people that are sacrificed, and with 72, it's 9 times 8.
Yep.
So it's just short of 9 times 9, which is like I guess you're not allowed to like kind of reach that level. Basically, you're not allowed to like reach that level of holiness. I think that's like reserved for their nature goddess, possibly.
Yeah. It's interesting too that they need the May Queen to be someone from the outside.
Is that explicitly said?
I don't think it's explicitly said, but it is showed in the photographs of old May Queens.
Oh, that's true.
I think it might actually have been hinted at, not explicitly said, but it was definitely like shown. Yeah. And I think the part of it is because this particular version of the ceremony, the sacrificing of the 9, requires requires 4 people from outside of the commune as well as 4 people from inside.
Yeah, it's strange. I'm not sure how to interpret that, but it's just weird, because it's like these people from outside, it's like they need some sort of, not necessarily approval, but some slice of the larger society that most people live in.
And it's cool too how many things are sort of buried in this, because 2 of the Horgens, Pelle's brother, it's not Pelle, it's Ingemar and Ulf, are the 2 that sacrifice themselves to be placed into the burning yellow house. If you go back and listen to the thing that Pelle said to Danny, which was like, I understand, I was left basically orphaned. And he says that his parents burned to death, his mother and father burned to death, and the community became his family. So his mother and father were sacrificed in their in the same type of ceremony, and then he became a child of the commune.
I didn't notice that he said they burnt to death.
He says that they burned to death this like second time he broaches the subject of Danny being reactive about all of this because of her family, when they're on the bed in the shared living space. There's something really crazy too about the like way that this movie is shot, in that I think that you get really cool scenes that tell you all of this. And there is, some explicit dialogue that makes clear what happened that's just been covered up by making it so sort of normal And that is one of them in particular, him being an orphan, because it's just like, oh, we just saw Danny's family die, leaving her an orphan. So his sort of attempt to make that connection with her is totally understandable. Like, we get that it's just so it feels innocuous. You know, the purging ritual only happens in like the last 5 minutes of the movie, so by the time we get to that, we've sort of glossed over the fact that he even said that, because it didn't mean anything then. It means something now.
Right.
And I think that there's a really cool way that they sort of do all of those motions and sort of prepare you for that, even down to the way that they skew angles in the movie. I one of the things that I was so struck by was the commune had 4 houses. The 2 on the outside had normal structures, and the 2 on the inside had the really weird roof structures that were like asymmetrical designs. And I was just like, oh, this is supposed to be sort of that like displacement, that almost surrealist way that things are skewed and things are a little bit off, and we get to sort of see that trajectory. And even when they are driving into the land, when the camera flips upside down, and so we move from watching the road ahead with the sky to having just the sky be the bottom and the road ahead, which is really cool, because if you just sort of let yourself go, it just feels like the light becomes the new road.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
What's also interesting is when there are basically any part that's not at Midsommar, all the shots feel like really closed in, and like usually in small rooms, and they're like really static. But I think all the shots in this film are fairly static as well. But it's just so like closed in. Like, think of their apartment scene. It's like feels so cramped, and like the bar and the party that they're at and Danny's apartment. It's all so dark and cramped. And then you get to Sweden, and everything's it's the widest shots you could possibly take, and they're all very bright. And even the inside of their structures, their buildings, are really like open and just airy. And I think that's like kind of that juxtaposition of like this trapped mentality that Danny might feel in America, and then she gets to Sweden, and it's like this, you know, she has room to breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. She escapes the choking of the smoke, which is even more symbolic because that's how her sister died.
Right. Well, and then they have that one sequence, like that dream sequence, where she exhales smoke. Like, it's clearly exhaust fumes.
Way early on, yeah.
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 Also, did you also notice that in the first act, I guess you can call it, when they're in America, there are a lot of shots done through mirrors. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be a thing throughout the movie. And then they get to Sweden and nothing. There's no mirrors, I think. And I don't know how to interpret that. I think maybe it's like it's got to do with like this self-identity kind of thing going on with Danny, but also maybe like, I don't know, the vanity of Americans, and that I guess not necessarily that, but more so that these people in this community don't even like have vanity as a concept. That's how not vain they are.
Yeah, I sort of looked at the mirror thing as being a way of sort of separating them, because it was showing Christian and Danny in the same shot, and the moment that he was sitting at his desk, and she was upset because he didn't tell her that he was going to go to Sweden. That it's supposed to be sort of like a proof of the disconnect between them, so that like when it sort of collapsed inward, we got to see and like follow the like way that they went from being opposed to being in conflict with each other.
Yeah. Well, they also do it when Christian is telling his friends that he invited Danny to the trip, but they also do it at the very beginning when Danny is on the phone with her friend. She has her like basically like, you know, that mirror that also doubles as a medicine cabinet behind it.
Yeah.
And she's taking her medicine.
You want to know an interesting theory?
Yes.
There is a theory that Terry, Danny's sister, actually was murdered
Yeah, by Pele. Yeah, didn't you say that when we were watching it?
I said it. Yeah, I said it early. I was just like, he did it. He's the killer, which ended up being correct in a not direct way. Where I was just like, oh yeah, he's too nice. But also, who knows?
I mean, he's manipulative, so I feel like
Yeah.
if anything, he may have coerced her into suicide or a murder-suicide, double murder-suicide.
Yeah. The one thing is, I was reading that part of this takes place in New York, and then her parents are like back in Utah. So I don't know how accurate.
Well, something else that confused
That could
me was how much time passed between her family dying and then like the next scene. Because it was like, okay, her family's dead, and then in the next scene she like kind of wakes. Well, she doesn't wake up, she's kind of like in bed being sad, understandably. And then he like comes in, he's like, oh, I'm going to this party. And it's like, all right, is this like the next day? Because if that's the case, then Christian's like the worst person ever. Or is it like a month later? Like, we don't know. I would assume it's not the next day because there's like no funeral scene.
I would hope so.
She's not jumping off to Sweden before this funeral happens.
Right. And also, we know that Christian is the worst person ever. So it's,
Right.
it's all there.
We didn't need affirmation on that.
Yeah, Christian's the worst person ever, a Vince Vaughn lookalike.
I thought you more looked like Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen, damn it. Why was I thinking Vince Vaughn?
Okay. I mean, I could see it a little. No, definitely Seth Rogen.
Yeah, it's Seth Rogen, but I was just he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Just the whole time.
Not Seth Rogen, Christian.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, maybe Seth Rogen. I've never met him.
The actor who played Christian was also pretty good, Jack Rayner. I do think he did a good job, but man, nothing compared to Florence Pugh in this movie. She just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And this is one of those movies where I think in general, no one was doing a bad job in acting. But she just killed it in terms of, like, quality. And
yeah, for sure.
It's just really, really, really good. Oh, I was going to say Will Poulter is possibly my least favorite actor.
I think he's in, like, a meme or something. I think
He
that's where I
is.
recognize
He's in
him
the
from.
You Guys Are Getting Paid.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay.
Yep. He's in the We're the Millers.
Yeah, it's like some shitty sitcom from back in the day. But yeah, I thought Florence Pugh did a really good job with, like, especially the breakdown scenes with, like,
Oh yeah.
where she'd I have to, like, go and be by myself, and you just get, like, that shot of her, like, walking towards the camera, and you just see her, like, emotions break down in a very believable and realistic way. And it's like, yeah, like, someone with anxiety would definitely have that kind of reaction. And, like, it's not necessarily, like, breaking down crying. That's not what I mean. But it's like this, like, when you have anxiety, it can sometimes be like this spiraling, like, almost like spiraling into, like, a void of emotions, but, like, you also experience some emotions on the way down. Mm-hmm. But
yeah. You really, she is, in my opinion, so believable. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy because there are so many people who are just like, this whole movie, all of the acting in this movie was flat and unbelievable. And I was like, well, what the fuck are you watching?
They're just watching Christian, which I think I agree with you. I thought that Jack Rayner did a great job playing, like, that aloof, asshole-ish character as well. Mm-hmm. His character was supposed to be flat. That's, like, the whole point. And yeah, seriously, what were they watching? Because, like, did they not see all the, like, emotional scenes with the screaming commune members? And did they like somehow see a cut of the film without Florence Pugh in it?
Yeah, they probably looked at the screaming commune members and were like, those people don't look sad. And it's like, they're not trying to. They are trying to be empathetic, and they are sharing experience. And in fact, at the end of the movie, when they're screaming, half of the commune is doing it in this sort of, like, pseudo pain, and half of them are smiling. and it's supposed to be because it is a rejoicing in that shared experience. Like there is celebration as much as there is like pain.
Yeah.
I think that people have this sort of misunderstanding of what acting should be, because the thing that I liked about this movie was the characters were believable. Like, not everything has to be fucking Broadway over the top, like, big acting. The way that the other actors, worked, like William Jackson Harper, who is in The Good Place, the guy in The Good Place, and Will Poulter, and the woman who played Connie, and the guy who played Simon, and they were acting in a way that would be realistic for people. The way that they actually spoke to each other, I would imagine people actually talk like that. I mean, some of these people are just like, this acting was unbelievable because it didn't remind me of the original Broadway run of Guys and Dolls. And it's like, that's not what this movie is. It's not supposed to be melodramatic. It's supposed to be absurdly mundane at the same time that it's shocking. And I think that that's showed by the way that there is so little reaction when the first elder kills herself. Like there's nothing there, and it's done very flatly, even with the sound. The sound design and the music production at that moment. It is a thing that happens, and it exists, and it doesn't need to be more than that.
Yeah. Well, I think that the thing about believable and good acting is that you shouldn't notice it, right?
Yeah.
That's the big thing here, is like all the acting was flat. It's like, well, did you notice something being like out of place or like unbelievable? Because maybe you just are looking for that overacting. I feel like part of what makes a good film is like, obviously good acting, but it's that you don't feel like you're watching a movie. You feel like you're part of the experience. And the more believable that is in any way, whether it's atmosphere or acting or whatever, sound design even, then the closer you come to experiencing what it is to be like part of this world that's in this film.
So Sarah, who wrote that, I'm just gonna say I disagree with your review, and I don't know what you fucking expected. You just probably missed that Mjolnir wasn't in the movie.
Like Thor's hammer?
Yeah.
Mjolnir?
Yeah, sure.
You're mixing your vowels.
I'm
it's the Nordic way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of, how about those runes, huh? I was like being a nerd because I was like,
tell me all of the runes.
Well, I can tell you some of the runes because there was just so many of them. How did you know them? Well, I had Google up while we were watching the movie, but when I was younger, I was like really into being able to like read runes, and I like recognized and remembered one of them that were in the movie, and then I was like, oh, I should like look up what's going on. So because
I cannot tell you how nerdy that makes you sound.
I know it does, and
I am shocked.
Well, I think Nordic culture is pretty neat. Nordic
it's
culture I mean, even including this movie, but anyways. Well, first of all, the Ruby Raider, which is their kind of like their history / scripture library that is in that one building that eventually gets Josh killed. The one guy who's explaining it to him, he says the runes are like emotional sheet music, which I thought was really cool. And also plants that seed of emotion being so important to their culture.
Yeah.
But it's also weird that in the Ruby Raider so they had like all those runes written down, but then the quote unquote prophet, the inbred member, just like kind of painted over it.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange. It's like, okay, so like how are you reading this then? Like what is the content of this? But do you have any idea?
No, I don't, because I didn't know what the runes meant.
Well, I couldn't see any of them because they're either covered in paint or they just kind of glossed over it.
Yeah, I think that one of the most significant was, you mentioned one of them means inheritance.
Yeah, so whenever they ate, like their dining tables, it's like a diamond with two sticks coming off the ends, and that is the Nordic rune for inheritance and possession, which is
Right.
two themes that is very very
Yeah,
present
yeah,
here.
yeah. In fact, it's there is sort of an anti-materialism to the culture at large, which is obviously anti-American, which it should be. But the idea of inheritance, I think, is so important to the cyclical nature of the movie as well, in that everything is sort of inherited from the people that came before, and it's the ritual. It is the way that they preserve their crops and preserve their way of life. And the way that they pass down their traditions and their genes to all of these people. And I also think that it's really interesting that there are no last names in the movie. And so we so typically associate inheritance with inheritance in the familial, in that, the thing that we carry from our parents is our last name. But this movie, specifically within the culture of the Swedish group, shirks that. It gets rid of this idea of parental inheritance, and instead it is truly the communal nature of passage and the cyclical nature of life.
Well, I think from their perspective, their rituals allow them to pretty much cyclically inherit life, but also this ability to enjoy nature and experience it in the way that they do.
Mm-hmm. And also, they have no possessions. No possessions except for, clothes. And even then, all of the clothes are essentially the same. There's no materialism inherent in that. And so you think, well, what is there to inherit? And the thing here that is being inherited is the lifestyle.
Right. Well, and it's interesting that of all things, of all places for that rune of inheritance to be, it's the dining table.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's shown a lot more too, though.
Well, yeah,
it's kind of all over.
It is, but I think also the reason for that being that they're inheriting the life of the plants and animals that they're consuming, because they worship nature so much there that it's like it's kind of like that idea that there's like this liminal amount of energy in the universe, and like it just passes through you.
I think that there is one other thing that I sort of noticed when we were watching that. The place that they actually sit, they have the elder at the tip of the diamond, and I want to guess that it might actually also have some sort of age progression, that as they get out to the legs, that is where the youngest of the commune are, so that it is actually an age thing too.
Well, okay, so getting some other runes here. In another one I thought was really interesting, was in the, I don't know what to call it, that like sacrificial hut.
That's a good name for it.
The yellow building. All inside was, it was two runes combined that were home and gifts. And the gifts make sense. I don't get the home. And with home, I feel like that's a theme in here, because Pele asks Danny at one point if Christian feels like home to her.
I think it's that sense of belonging, that, and we see Danny become part of this commune, and they do that with the sinking of their sorrows, with like the scene where all of the women are in the circle and they're panicking together.
Yeah. And also something that just occurred to me is that I feel like, given that those two are together, it's like this sacrificial kind of message to their nature goddess of like, here are these gifts so that you may bless our home, kind of idea. It's simpler than what I was trying to think of, I think.
Yeah.
The last rune that I actually got time to look at was the one that all these women that participated in the dance ritual ceremony thing, they all had, The maple, right? The maple. That's what it was. They all had different runes on their. What would you call what they're wearing? They're like blouses. Frocks. That's the word. Frock. I've never worn a frock, so I don't know what to call something I've never worn. Anyways, their frocks all had different runes on it, and Danny's had the runes for death and ending on it. And
Ooh.
so it was like, oh, she's gonna die, right? And no, I think it was more a foreshadowing of like she got to decide whose ending was going to be happening. Mm-hmm. But also the music that was playing during that maple dance was it was really awesome. But also kind of sounded like Paint It Black.
Paint It Black.
And that's what I thought was happening at first. I was like, ooh, they're just going to sneak that in there. That's kind of cool. But then it was like different.
This soundtrack fucking rips. Just the whole time. It's so good. It is such a good score in that it is never intrusive. And I think that a lot of the time the music can be very intrusive in horror movies, but this didn't have the sort of traditional markings of a horror soundtrack, but it did use some like classical horror technique. And one of the ones that I particularly enjoyed was the moments where there would be string double stops that would then start to bend like in and out of tune with each other. Mm. And then the bending would become other sound. Mm-hmm. And then that other sound would become like the folk music dancing that they would have going on. And there was the particular scene where the elders were at the cliff. There was this really gorgeous like electronic like vocal score underneath, which was my absolute jam. Like that is the type of music, electronic music specifically, that I like to write, that has like that atmospheric vocal quality to it. Mm-hmm. Just absolutely ripped, which is nice because I feel like we haven't had a movie with a good, memorable score for a while. But this one goes for one of my top scores of 2019. This and Us is the other one that gets one of my top scores of 2019.
Yeah, he did a good job. It's Bobby Krlic. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Krlic.
Yep, that's hard to pronounce.
Yeah, Krlic.
Maybe he's do you think he's Swedish?
He's not. He's British. I just looked him up.
He's also called the Haxan Cloak.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So, do you want to play the game that I came up with?
Yeah, let's do that.
The thing that I came up with, this is called Rear View Window. Obviously a portmanteau of Rear Window and Review. In that we are going to look back on the 20 movies that we did in 2020. I'm going to read you a review of the movie, and I want you to guess which movie the review is about. So this is your first review. This movie makes a convincing argument for classy psychological horror cinema, even as it fails to meet its own lofty standard. Prioritizing atmosphere and characterization over gore, the director illustrates how fear often derives from internal rather than external forces.
Okay, so it's psychological in nature. So I think it's either Paranormal Activity or Psycho, but I feel like no one's gonna do Psycho like that, so I'm gonna go with Paranormal Activity.
It's the Babadook.
Oh, you know what? My eyes just like glazed right over that one.
All right, you ready for the next one?
I can see it. Yeah, let's do it.
It's always puzzling when a good director makes a bad movie, but the case of this movie seems downright baffling. More than a disappointment, the film is an almost systematic denial of this director's credentials as an artist and filmmaker. But this movie does more than avoid sweetness and light. It's a gnarled, brutal, highly manipulative film at its center, and it seems morally indefensible.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs! You got it. Mm-hmm. All right, you're going to like this one. If there are any ancient Sumerians around, they ought to sue for defamation of character, since they are blamed for the curse that leads to all the havoc in this imbecilic horror movie. To what perverse strains of human nature do movies like this appeal?
Is it The Evil Dead?
It's The Evil Dead. You got it.
Yeah! Definitely given away in the wording, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
I got one.
All right, what about this one? This movie is devoid of everything. There's nothing funny. I saw nothing scary. There's nothing to deduce. There's no real plot except survival. There's no lesson. It's dark. There's a lot of wearisome talk. The one good thing about it is that it's over an hour and 47 minutes. The bad thing is to think what a terrible waste it was of an hour and 47 minutes. But I'm being too kind.
Oh my god. It's Bird Box.
It's not Bird Box.
It's not Bird Box? Oh, but that does describe Bird Box.
Yeah, you want to know what it is?
Cargo. Oh,
it's
shit.
Signs.
What?
This movie's devoid of everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing funny. This person just didn't like Signs.
My god. Nothing scary.
You're going to love this one. This was a poor film. First of all, it's not in color. Secondly, there's no CGI.
Oh god. It's just Psycho? Or...
Yeah.
No, wait. Okay. That could have been A Girl Walks Home Alone.
It was Psycho.
Or it could have been Rear Window.
Color. Yeah, could have been Rear Window.
True.
Rear Window's in color.
Well, they colorized it.
That's true. All right, Zach, what would you rank as the best of the 20 that we watched this year?
Ooh, well, that's hard because, like, best for what? Just best overall?
What was your favorite?
Most enjoyable? Okay, favorite. I can do
favorite?
that. Okay, so favorite. Well, my favorite's going to be one that I hadn't seen before because I like enjoying new experiences. So probably my favorite, honestly, my favorite was probably Rear Window. Yeah. I just really love that movie.
It was good. I think that my favorite was actually A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Yeah, I would say it's tied for second. Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and then this, Midsommar.
Yeah. These are very similar to me in aesthetic and feel, and I think that both of them having that sort of lead female protagonist, they share a lot. Very good movies that I geeked out over the whole time we were watching it. All right, Zach, of the movies that we did for 2020, which was the worst?
Like my least favorite.
What was your least favorite? Sure.
Oh, I think you know that.
Is it All the Creatures Were Stirring?
Oh. You know, it kind of has to be. I feel like I can't count that one. We're going to ignore that one because I feel like that's a given. I'm going to go with The Evil Dead.
All right.
Honestly, I like I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in This House more than The Evil Dead. And I'm going to be crucified for saying that, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, you're going to be crucified by me. I would say, oh God, I Am the Pretty Thing is just so bad. But then I also saw Signs, and I just remembered. I just remembered the vitriol. I think I have to go I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is my least favorite of the ones that aren't including All the Creatures Were Stirring.
That one just gets a bye.
Yeah, we just get to, yeah, we're giving it a bye week. We'll throw it in with the 2021 movies.
And it'll still be the worst.
And it'll still be bottom of the barrel. Thank you, everyone, for spending this year listening to Zach and I talk about horror movies. If you liked listening to Watch No Evil, remember you can keep on doing so, and we have lots of social media things to follow. So thank you for a great 2020. This is Matt.
And this is Zach.
If a handsome Swedish